Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here again, taking apart complex topics and giving you clear, actionable strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. And today we're tackling a really critical point for anyone who owns or is thinking about owning rental property.
Property management. It sounds straightforward maybe, but it's where the rubber really meets the road after you buy.
It absolutely is, because once you close on that property, you hit this fork in the road almost immediately. Is this thing going to be a genuine investment, building wealth over time?
Or
Yeah.
have you just bought yourself a job? A pretty demanding, often underpaid, 24/7 kind of job.
That's the heart of it. And that's our mission today, to really dig into what's involved. The actual work, the costs you might not see coming, the strategic thinking required.
So you, the listener, can make a really informed choice. Are you going the do-it-yourself route, the DIY path, or are you hiring a professional property manager?
It sounds like a simple decision, but honestly, it shapes your entire experience as an investor. It dictates how your portfolio grows, or if it even does.
Okay, so let's start with some groundwork. Definitions. Our sources are pretty specific here. We need to be clear about investment.
Right. In this context, investment means buying an asset, your rental property, with the plan for predictable long-term profit.
Profit coming from, well, two main streams. The regular income, the rent checks, and hopefully appreciation, the value going up over years, maybe decades.
Exactly. It's calculated, it's long-term. This is totally different from speculation, which is more about chasing quick profits, maybe flipping something in weeks or months.
We're focused on the investor mindset here, buying for that dependable future cash flow. That's the goal, right? Building wealth steadily.
Precisely. And managing that asset, that's the pivot point. That's where you decide if you stay purely an investor or if you become, well, an active operator, a landlord.
And that's not always a bad thing, being active, but it changes the equation entirely. If managing just one property ends up taking, say, 10, 15, 20 hours of your week,
Then you're not really passively investing anymore, are you? You're actively working. You've essentially traded your time for maybe a slightly higher cash flow margin.
you're working for yourself, yeah, but maybe not at the rate you'd like, considering the demands.
Exactly. So we need to unpack that time commitment. What are the actual tasks? What skills do you really need? Not just handyman skills, but legal know-how, financial tracking.
It's a lot. So let's perform like a realistic assessment of what it takes. Okay, let's dive into the DIY side first. Why do people choose to manage their own properties? What's the big appeal?
Honestly, it boils down to one main thing: money. Saving money.
Right. You avoid paying that property management fee, which can be significant.
Oh, yeah. Depending on your market, the services included, you're typically looking at somewhere between, say, 8%, maybe up to 12% of the monthly rent.
And that's just the base fee, often.
Yeah,
There can be other charges too, right?
absolutely. Leasing fees when a tenant moves in, sometimes renewal fees if they stay, those extras add up. So, avoiding all that, that cash goes straight to your bottom line.
Which directly boosts your profitability, especially if you're really focused on metrics like cash-on-cash return. Makes sense.
But it's not just about saving the fee. There's also a control aspect. Some investors, especially those who like to force the value higher, as one source put it.
Meaning they do rehab work, renovations themselves.
Exactly. They want hands-on control over improving the property, increasing its value. They might enjoy the work, or at least enjoy the savings from doing it themselves instead of hiring contractors.
Okay, so that brings up a key point. The DIY path isn't just about wanting to save money. You actually need the skills, right?
You really do. We saw that example in the sources Eric drank on. He took over his dad's portfolio, started with a fixer-upper fourplex.
And found he was actually good at it.
Yeah.
And liked it.
Yeah, he found he had a knack for both the management side and the physical work. He specifically mentioned enjoying the rehab because, well, he saved a bundle by not paying contractors.
So that's the takeaway for anyone listening. Are you handy? Do you have the time? Do you understand the admin side? It requires a specific skill set and the right aptitude, not just the desire to pocket that 10%.
Precisely. Because if you go DIY, you are signing up for the whole package. Full responsibility. Legally, financially.
Okay, what does that mean in real terms? Beyond fixing a leaky faucet, which everyone thinks of.
Oh, much more. You're taking on all the defined landlord duties. That means making sure the property is properly insured, liability, damage, the works.
Paying property taxes, any special assessments on time.
Keeping the property maintained, not just reactive repairs, but proactive upkeep, and making necessary capital improvements over time to keep it safe, compliant, and, frankly, desirable for tenants.
These aren't optional extras. These are legal obligations. And they protect your asset.
They absolutely do. And the administrative load, even for just one single-family rental, can be surprisingly heavy. It's paperwork, legal deadlines, financial tracking.
So let's break that down. Our sources seem to group the day-to-day into roughly 3 phases across a tenancy lifecycle.
Right. And the hard work, the really critical stuff, actually starts before you even have a tenant. We can call this the pregame.
Phase 1, marketing and screening. And you said this is high stakes.
Arguably the highest. Because the decisions you make here, they echo for the entire length of the lease, sometimes longer. Get it right, you might have smooth sailing. Get it wrong.
Years of headaches. Okay, so if I'm doing DIY, what's step 1 in this phase?
Marketing the vacancy. And doing it well. One source just flat out says, getting your house rented, IS the game.
But like we said, not just rented to anyone, rented to the right someone.
Exactly, and that starts with how you present the property. Photography.
Photos again, it seems so basic.
It does. But think about how people search for rentals now. It's all online. Scrolling through listings, what makes them stop? Good pictures.
And what makes them scroll right past?
Bad pictures, blurry phone snaps taken vertically, weird angles making rooms look tiny or distorted, poor lighting where you can't see details.
Yeah, I've seen those. It looks unprofessional, frankly.
Totally. And prospective tenants, good ones, they often won't even click on an ad if the pictures are terrible or missing. They assume the property matches the photos. Your marketing literally determines the quality of people who even apply.
Okay, so good photos, good description, you get some interest. Now comes screening. This sounds crucial.
It is absolutely critical. This is your main defense against future problems. It needs to be rigorous, objective, and really importantly, consistent.
What does rigorous mean here? Credit checks.
Definitely. Our sources frame a credit score as basically evidence of someone's track record, their willingness and ability to pay bills on time. So as a DIY landlord, you need to set a minimum acceptable score.
Like say 650, 680, whatever it is for your market and risk tolerance.
Exactly. And then here's the key, you have to stick to it consistently. For every single applicant, no exceptions based on stories or feelings.
Consistency. Why is that so vital? Beyond just good practice.
Legal risk. Big time. If you start making exceptions or applying standards differently to different people, you open yourself up to fair housing complaints, discrimination lawsuits.
So it's not just credit score. It's the whole package. Income verification, employment history, eviction records.
All of it. You need clear, written, minimum qualification standards before you even advertise the vacancy. Income, say, 3 times the rent. Stable job history, no recent evictions, whatever your criteria are.
And apply them identically to everyone.
Identically. No wiggle room based on whether you like someone or feel sorry for them. The sources had that unsettling anecdote.
Right, where the landlord approved a guy who applied alone, leaving his partner and kids off the lease because, quote, people like single dads.
Yeah, that's a flashing red light for a fair housing violation. It suggests the decision wasn't based on objective criteria, but on a protected characteristic familial status.
And we need to stress for you listening, this isn't about judging the landlord's intentions. It's about the legal risk created by inconsistent subjective screening.
Absolutely. A professional property manager is often valuable here simply because they act as a buffer. They have established non-discriminatory policies, often use third-party screening companies, and make decisions based purely on the predefined metrics. It removes the landlord's personal bias or even the appearance of bias.
So the DIY landlord needs to be prepared to operate with that same level of legal discipline. It's not just about finding a tenant. It's about navigating a legal minefield.
That's a good way to put it. Phase 1 is intense.
Okay, so you've successfully marketed, rigorously screened, and placed a good tenant. Phase 2 begins. The mid-game. This is about keeping things running smoothly.
Exactly. Now the focus shifts to maintaining the physical property and making sure the tenant upholds their end of the lease agreement.
So, maintenance. This is the leaky faucets and broken appliances part.
That's part of it, yes, the reactive stuff. But good DIY management, just like professional management, is also proactive. It means looking for potential problems before they become big, expensive ones.
Like what? What should a DIY landlord be checking regularly?
Think about property inspections, or even just during routine visits or turnovers. You need to be looking for subtle signs. Minor water stains on the ceiling that could indicate a slow roof leak.
Okay, catching that early saves a lot of damage.
Huge savings. Checking the condition of flooring. Is the carpet worn out and becoming a trip hazard? Are tiles cracked? Assessing the age and condition of major systems, HVAC, water heater.
What about smaller things?
Oh yeah, details matter. Are the window screens intact? Is the paint peeling, especially on exterior wood trim? And a classic one. Check the caulk around tubs, showers, sinks.
The caulk. Why is that so important?
Because failed caulk lets water seep behind walls or under floors. That leads to water damage, rot, and potentially mold growth. A tiny bead of caulk can prevent thousands in remediation costs.
Makes sense. So it's a constant checklist, really. Preventative maintenance.
It really is. And it's also about planning for bigger things. Are the kitchen cabinets or appliances getting seriously outdated? That affects tenant satisfaction, sure, but it also impacts the rent you can charge next time and the quality of applicant you'll attract.
Right. It's about maintaining the value of the asset, not just fixing things.
Precisely. Now, the other half of this phase is lease compliance.
Making sure the tenant follows the rules laid out in the lease they sign.
Exactly. What happens if they don't? Maybe they get a pet in violation of a no-pet policy. Maybe they're causing damage beyond normal wear and tear, or creating noise issues that bother neighbors.
As the DIY landlord, you have to address that. You can't just ignore it.
You absolutely have to address it, promptly and critically, using the correct legal procedures.
Back to legal stuff.
Okay.
This involves specific notices.
Almost always. You can't just call them up and yell. You need to understand your local landlord-tenant laws intimately. For example, the sources mentioned Washington state law.
What's the rule there for a lease violation?
Typically, you have to serve a formal written notice to comply. It outlines the specific violation and gives the tenant a set period, often 10 days in Washington, to fix the problem.
And if they don't fix it within that time frame?
Then, and only then, can you usually begin formal eviction proceedings based on that violation. But the notice itself has to be perfect. Correct wording, correct delivery method, certified mail, posting, whatever the statute requires.
If you mess up the notice,
your whole case could get thrown out if it goes to court. You lose time, you lose rent, and you have to start the entire notification process over again.
Wow. So even enforcing simple lease rules requires knowing specific legal procedures and timelines. The administrative burden seems significant.
It's significant, and it requires meticulous record keeping. Every communication, every notice served, every photo of the violation, you need a clear, legally defensible paper trail. It's a long way from just a casual chat.
Okay, which leads us directly into phase 3.
Yeah.
The one I think most DIY landlords dread the most. Non-payment of rent.
Yeah, this is where the financial risk really spikes. And the advice from our sources is unanimous and forceful on this point.
Which is?
Take immediate action. As soon as rent is late, according to the terms of your lease and local law, you must act.
Why the urgency? Why not give them a few extra days? Maybe they just forgot.
Because delaying is the fastest way to turn a manageable issue, late rent, into a potential financial catastrophe for you. Tenant obligations don't pause just because rent is late. Your mortgage is still due, taxes, insurance.
Right. And the legal process itself takes time. You can't afford to add more delay at the start.
Exactly. So what does immediate action typically look like? In most places, the very first legal step is serving a formal notice, usually called something like a 3-day pay or quit notice.
Meaning the tenant has 3 days, or whatever the statutory period is, to pay the full amount due, or else they must vacate the property.
Correct. And again, this notice has to be drafted and served exactly according to state and local statutes. The amount due must be precise, the deadline clear, the delivery method compliant.
Is this notice usually enough to get tenants to pay?
Often, yes. Receiving that formal legal notice signals that you're serious, you know the law, and you're prepared to enforce the lease. It often prompts tenants to find the funds quickly.
Not always. What if the 3 days pass and they still haven't paid or moved out?
Now you're at a crossroads. The next step might be negotiation. Can you work out a payment plan they can realistically stick to? Maybe they're waiting on a paycheck, or like that example with Sharina.
Right, where she got big rent checks in February when tenants received tax refunds.
Yeah. Sometimes there are predictable external factors. A savvy landlord might try to work with a generally good tenant experiencing a temporary setback. Flexibility can sometimes save you the cost and hassle of eviction.
But that flexibility has limits, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Negotiation only works if the tenant is communicating and making credible efforts. The sources also gave that tougher example. A tenant made a partial payment, but was still way behind.
And the conclusion was?
They would have to be evicted. Sometimes enforcement is just a financial necessity to stop the bleeding. You can't let unpaid rent accumulate indefinitely.
Which brings us to the E word, eviction. If negotiation fails, this is the next step.
It's the formal legal process to regain possession of your property. And let's be clear, it's complex, it's expensive, and it can be emotionally draining for everyone involved.
What kind of costs are we talking about?
Court filing fees, potentially fees to have the sheriff serve notices or carry out the physical removal if it comes to that, and potentially attorney's fees, which can run into the thousands very quickly, especially if the tenant contests the eviction.
And all the while, you're not collecting rent.
That's the biggest financial hit, the lost rent during the entire process. Depending on your location and how backed up the courts are, a contested eviction could take anywhere from 30 days to 60 days, 90 days, sometimes even longer from the initial notice until you actually get the property back.
Wow. So if your cash flow margins are thin on that property,
A single eviction can wipe out an entire year's worth of profit, or more. It can put a massive strain on your finances, especially if you don't have significant cash reserves set aside for vacancies and legal costs.
okay, looking at these three phases together, the marketing and screening up front, the ongoing maintenance and compliance, and then the potential for handling non-payment and eviction, it really paints a picture of the DIY workload.
It's substantial. It requires time, specific knowledge, legal awareness, financial discipline, and frankly, a certain temperament.
Which makes the alternative outsourcing look pretty appealing for many investors.
Exactly. Let's talk about bringing in the pros. Professional property managers, or PMs.
Are they just a convenience?
Yeah.
Or more fundamental?
For many investors, especially those looking to scale up, own multiple properties, or invest in markets far from where they live, PMs are basically essential infrastructure. They're not a luxury. They're part of the operational team.
Because they handle all that day-to-day stuff we just talked about. The marketing, screening, maintenance, rent collection, even the evictions.
Pretty much, yes. They take on the operational burden, freeing up the investor to focus on higher-level strategy, finding the next deal, managing the portfolio's finances, securing financing.
Okay, but that service comes at a cost. We touched on the fees earlier. Let's get specific about how that impacts the financials.
Right. Critically, property management fees are an operating expense. This is really important.
Why? How does that classification matter?
Because it directly impacts your net operating income, your NOI.
Yeah.
You calculate NOI by taking your gross rental income and subtracting all your operating expenses, things like property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, and property management fees.
And NOI is a key metric for investors.
Yeah. It's arguably the key metric for valuing income-producing property. Lenders and buyers often use NOI along with a market capitalization rate, or cap rate, to determine what your property is worth.
So higher operating expenses, like PM fees, mean lower NOI.
Which generally means a lower property valuation, all else being equal. So that PM fee isn't just a monthly cash flow hit. It can affect the overall value of your asset when you go to sell or refinance. You have to factor it in strategically.
Okay, let's break down that fee structure again. It's not always just that simple 8-12% monthly fee.
Definitely not. You need to read the management agreement very carefully. A common additional fee is the leasing fee, sometimes called a tenant placement fee.
Like that example where the investor paid one full month's rent just to get the unit shown and a tenant qualified.
Exactly. That's very common, and it's often charged every time the property turns over and they have to find a new tenant.
Are there other fees to watch out for?
Yes. Sometimes there are lease renewal fees if an existing tenant stays on. There might be setup fees when you first sign on. And pay close attention to how maintenance is handled.
Meaning, do they charge extra for coordinating repairs?
Some PMs have in-house maintenance crews and charge hourly rates. Others use third-party contractors but might add a markup, like 10 or 15% on top of the contractor's invoice as an oversight fee. Some might have minimum charges per service call.
So you really need to understand the total cost structure, not just the headline percentage.
Absolutely. Get it all in writing. Ask detailed questions. Build all those potential costs into your financial projections for the property from day one. Don't get surprised later.
And what about the paperwork they provide? You get monthly reports, right? Are those enough for tracking finances?
They're a great start. PM reports are usually excellent for tracking the operational side. Rent collected, vacancies, maintenance expenses they paid, their fees deducted. But, and this is a big but for you, the investor.
They don't capture everything.
Typically, no. They won't include expenses you paid directly out of pocket. Maybe you paid for some initial marketing ads yourself before handing it over. Maybe you traveled to see the property. Definitely won't include your mortgage payment or capital improvements you funded.
So you still need your own separate bookkeeping system for tax purposes and to calculate your true overall profit and loss on the investment.
100%. The PM report is input into your system, but it's not the whole picture. You need that diligence.
Oh, diligence is key, which leads to finding the right PM. This sounds like another critical decision point.
It is huge because not all PMs are created equal. Far from it. You need to approach hiring a PM with the same rigor you'd use hiring a key employee for your own business.
The sources warn about this, right? That everyone involved, agents, lenders, PMs, might just tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah, because they want your business. They'll promise the moon sometimes. So vetting them thoroughly is absolutely crucial. You can't just pick the first one you find online or the cheapest one.
What's the goal then? What makes a good PM?
You're looking for competence, obviously, but also passion, good systems, transparency, and great communication. The sources use the term rock stars. You want someone who is genuinely good at their job and treats your property like they would their own.
How do you find these rock stars? Where do you even start looking?
Referrals are often the best place. Talk to other local investors. Join a local real estate investor association, an REIA meeting. Ask who people there trust and recommend.
Online resources, too.
Definitely. Platforms like BiggerPockets have forums where investors discuss PMs in specific markets. Look for reviews, but also look for detailed discussions about experiences, both good and bad.
Okay, so you get some names. What do you ask them in an interview? How do you vet them beyond their sales pitch?
Get specific. Ask about their performance metrics. What's their average vacancy period? How long does it take them to fill a unit? What's their eviction rate?
What about process?
Ask about their process for handling maintenance requests, emergencies versus routine. How do they screen tenants?
Yeah.
What are their exact qualification standards? How do they handle late rent? Ask to see a sample owner statement or report. Ask about their communication policy. How often will you hear from them?
And ask about those fees again, in detail.
Every single potential fee. Get a copy of their standard management agreement and review it carefully, maybe even with an attorney if you're unsure about anything.
It sounds like finding a great PM is almost an investment in itself.
It really is. And think about the leverage. Once you find that rockstar PM, they become a valuable resource beyond just managing the property.
How so?
One investor in the sources mentioned using their trusted PM to get referrals for other key team members, especially contractors. A good PM works with reliable plumbers, electricians, handymen all the time. They've already vetted them.
Ah, so leveraging their network. That could save a ton of time and headaches trying to find good contractors yourself, especially if you're investing from out of town.
Exactly. It helps you build your entire support team faster, accessing proven players, which is essential if you want to scale your portfolio efficiently.
Okay, so we've laid out the realities of DIY and the role, costs, and process of hiring a pro. Now let's bring it all together. How does an investor actually make this decision? It feels like it comes down to time versus money.
That's the classic trade-off, absolutely. But it's a bit more nuanced than just comparing the PM fee to the hours you'd spend. It's about the strategic value of your time versus the leverage you gain from delegation.
Explain that difference, value versus leverage.
Well, think back to the DIY approach. The value proposition is clear. You spend your time doing the work, rehab management tasks, and you directly save the money you would have paid someone else, like Eric Drancon valuing the savings from his own rehab work.
Right. The return on his time was immediate and tangible money not spent.
Exactly. But the questions successful investors eventually ask is, could my time generate an even higher return if spent elsewhere? Not just saving a fee, but maybe finding the next property. Or improving skills in my primary career to earn more, which then funds more investments.
So it's about opportunity cost. What else could you be doing with those 10, 20 hours a week?
Precisely. And that's where leverage comes in. Hiring a PM or using automation allows you to leverage other people's time and systems to handle the operational tasks, freeing your time for higher value activities.
Let's talk about automation. How does that fit in? It's not quite hiring a PM, but it's not pure DIY either.
Automation is huge, regardless of whether you fully outsource or not. The sources describe it as a way to lock in future behavior. You set up systems that run consistently without your direct moment-to-moment involvement.
What kind of systems are we talking about for rentals?
It's really prominent in the short-term rental STR market, almost mandatory there. Think about automated guest messaging, booking confirmations, check-in instructions, Wi-Fi codes, checkout reminders.
Software that handles dynamic pricing based on demand. Coordinating cleaning schedules automatically.
All of that. Because the turnover is so frequent and guest communication demands are high, STR owners have to automate and delegate just to keep up. It minimizes their direct involvement and maximizes efficiency.
Can those principles apply to long-term rentals too?
Absolutely. Maybe it's using online rent payment systems with automatic late fee calculation and reminders. Maybe it's standardized email templates for lease renewals or routine property inspection notices. Setting up a system for tracking maintenance requests digitally instead of sticky notes.
So it's about building processes that reduce the amount of manual effort you have to put in for recurring tasks.
Exactly. Whether you use a PM or DIY, implementing systems and automation makes the whole operation more efficient and less dependent on your constant firefighting. It helps you move from being purely reactive to being proactive and strategic.
This sounds like it connects to a broader mindset about how you approach the work.
It really does. The sources touch on this idea of mastery. Achieving real success in any field, investing included, requires more than just putting in hours. It requires consistently going beyond our limits, producing results that are better than average.
And that takes discipline, whether you're managing the property yourself or managing the manager.
Discipline and a focus on the right things.
Yeah.
There's a concept mentioned, focusing on activity-based indicators, or ABIs, rather than just the final outcome.
What's the difference? Isn't the outcome, like getting rent paid, all that matters?
The outcome matters, of course, but you often can't directly control the outcome. You can control the activities that lead to that outcome. ABIs are those controllable, measurable steps.
Give me an example for a DIY landlord.
Okay, the desired outcome is low vacancy. An ABI leading to that might be number of high-quality marketing photos taken and uploaded within 24 hours of vacancy,
Wow.
number of pre-screening calls completed per applicant, or number of preventative maintenance checks completed per quarter.
Things you can actually do and track consistently.
Exactly. And if you know through experience or tracking that doing X activity reliably produces Y result, like rigorous pre-screening leads to fewer evictions, then when you want to improve results, you don't just wish for it. You step on the gas pedal and increase that activity, you make more screening calls, you inspect more often.
And if you've hired a property manager, your ABIs change.
Completely. Your outcome might still be maximize NOI or minimize vacancy, but your activities, your ABIs, are now about managing the manager. Things like number of monthly performance reviews conducted with the PM, or number of new potential backup contractors vetted by the PM this quarter, or reviewing and approving PM reports within 48 hours.
So your focus shifts from managing the property to managing the system and the people operating it.
Precisely, but the principle is the same. Identify the key activities that drive results, measure them, and consistently execute them. That disciplined process is what builds reliable, scalable success, not just hoping for good luck or working yourself into the ground. #tag Bizai. Conclusion and provocative thought.
Okay, this has been a really thorough breakdown. We've walked through the weeds of DIY management, the tasks, the legal risks, the time drain, and we've looked at the alternative outsourcing to a pro, the costs, the benefits, and how to find a good one.
Yeah, and it really comes down to a strategic choice, doesn't it? There's no single right answer for every investor or every property. It's about aligning your management strategy with your personal goals, your skills, your available time, and your tolerance for risk.
Let's just quickly recap that core trade-off one more time.
Sure. The DIY path. You save the management fee, potentially boosting immediate cash flow. You have total control.
Right.
But the cost is steep. It demands significant time, a wide range of skills from plumbing to law, constant vigilance, and it scales very poorly. Your time becomes the bottleneck.
Right. And the outsourcing path, hiring a professional PM, you pay a fee, which is a direct hit to your operating income and potentially property value.
Right.
You give up some direct control. But the benefit is huge. You gain infrastructure, expertise, legal buffering, and most importantly, time, leverage.
That leverage allows you to focus on higher-level activities like growing your portfolio or simply enjoying the passive income stream without it consuming your life. It makes real estate feel more like an investment and less like a second job.
Which for many people was the whole point of investing in the first place, to escape the job, not create a new, more demanding one.
Exactly. It really forces you to confront whether your property is truly acting as an asset that works for you or if you are working for the asset.
Okay, so that leads us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener, to chew on after this deep dive.
We often see this pattern in behavioral finance. People avoid selling a losing stock because they don't want to formally admit the mistake and realize the loss on paper.
Right, the get-even-itis bias.
Yeah. There might be a parallel in property management. Sometimes investors stick with DIY management long after it stopped making sense for their life or their goals. They avoid hiring a professional. Maybe because doing so feels like admitting they can't handle it, or they lack the time, or maybe even the skill. It's tough to admit that.
So the provocation is this. If the fundamental goal of real estate investment is to acquire assets that produce a predictable, hopefully growing stream of income with reasonable effort.
Then you need to ask yourself honestly, where is my personal time, my most valuable limited resource, best spent? Is it best spent dealing with the day-to-day headaches of tenant calls, maintenance coordination, and navigating local ordinances for this one property?
Or is that time more strategically, more profitably spent finding the next property, analyzing deals, improving financing, building relationships, activities that could potentially amplify your wealth much faster than saving that 10% management fee on a single unit?
Is your investment truly remaining a passive asset, or has it accidentally, maybe stubbornly, become the very job you were initially trying to move away from?
Something to think about. A critical question to answer for yourself as you manage or grow your portfolio.